When the movie Saw came out in 2004, I figured that this would be the direction that we would see survival horror games go. Not necessarily the torture elements, but the idea of people being trapped in a maze and forced to play a game in order to survive. This turned out to not be the case. While Konami tried to make something happen with a pair of officially licensed Saw games, the horror genre largely went in a different direction. It is, until now, thanks to a brand new thriller known as the Tartarus Key. This is a low-poly throwback adventure that traps you and other innocent people in a mansion full of mysteries and dangers. It has demonic symbols, devilish puzzles, and a private investigator that seems to know more than she's letting on. And that's just in the first 5 minutes. Does the rest of the game stack up to this great premise? That's what we're gonna find out when I review The Tartarus Key by Vertical Reach. This is the story of a young woman named Alex, who wakes up in the middle of the night to find that she's been kidnapped and trapped in a small room full of dusty old books. Even more curious is that there's a walkie-talkie on the table, revealing that there's another trapped woman in another part of the mansion. Her name is Taurus, and she's a private eye who may have gotten a little too close to the people that she's investigating. Together, the two team up in hopes of finding a way out of the mansion and back to civilization. What Alex quickly realizes is that this is not your typical house. There are cameras everywhere, and it's clear that somebody's brought these two women together for some reason. But why? Before she can even think about that question, it becomes clear that there are other victims in the mansion, forcing Alex to go room to room, solving a series of complicated puzzles and saving people from certain death. Now, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about the victims or the mansion's many mysteries, since a lot of the fun of this type of game is discovering them on your own. This is definitely a horror thriller with a lot of twists and surprises, including a few that you definitely won't see coming. What I will say is that the cast is generally likable, even when it's clear that not all of them are getting along. There's the right type of tension in this group, as nobody truly trusts the others, and everybody is suspicious that the mastermind may be among us. I don't think I'm spoiling anything when I say that the puzzles are both varied and creative. If you've played a lot of these type of adventure games, then chances are you're going to recognize a lot of the puzzle types and components. But even then, the game knows when it's plowing familiar ground and does an excellent job shaking some of them up and giving the more played out puzzles a new facelift. What I really like about this game is how each of the puzzles is largely contained to a single room. If you need an item to complete a puzzle, then it's almost guaranteed to be within just a few steps of where you need to use it. You'll also find a lot of hints in the room, giving us a little help when we need it the most. The only exception to this is when you find keys or an access card, since these are often tied to exploring a whole new wing of the mansion. The rest of the puzzles are isolated, which means that you're never going to run into a situation where that item that you need is on the complete other side of the house. Look, it's almost comical how many puzzles this game throws at Alex. In fact, there are so many that it actually becomes an on-running joke between she and Torres. The good news is that there's just so much variety that you won't actually mind that we're just basically walking from one brain teaser to the next. There are puzzles where you'll need to memorize your surroundings, ones that will have you pushing buttons, and even one incredibly tense puzzle that'll have you putting your mixology skills to the test in a life or death game of bartending. As somebody who loves solving these types of challenges, the Tartarus Key was right up my alley. Now, I have to say that the throwback 32-bit era graphics do help to set the mood and give this spooky mansion some personality. I like that this game looks the part without actually playing like an old PlayStation 1 game. Apart from the low-res polygons and the setting, this game doesn't actually control like Resident Evil or other survival games of the 1990s. Instead, the Tartarus Key feels like a somewhat modern first-person adventure game, which definitely makes solving a lot of the puzzles a whole lot easier. While I definitely like this look, I wish that more had been done with the sound. This is a game filled with colorful characters, and I so desperately wanted to hear what they sounded like. What makes it even worse is that these conversations usually happen during complete silence, making them feel twice as long as they actually are. And it's a real shame because there's some pithy dialogue throughout, especially from one or two key characters. On that note, I can understand if people get frustrated by the overwhelming amount of conversations that you'll have in this game. There are moments early on where it feels like you can't go more than 5 steps without getting into another one of those silent back and forths with Doras. And speaking of frustrating, while the majority of the puzzles are well crafted, there are a few that are little more than just trial and error, with nothing giving us clues or hints. Yeah, I found that these puzzles really brought the snappy pacing to a grinding halt. The good news is that it's easy to overlook these issues. The writing is certainly strong enough to keep you invested in the many, many conversations, and the few annoying puzzles are little more than speed bumps in this otherwise well-paced adventure. Best of all, it has one of those final acts that's gonna stick with you, making the many trials and tribulations well worth the effort. Fans of puzzles and surprisingly spooky mansions rejoice, because the Tartarus Key is a great new thriller with a whole lot to say. Maybe even too much to say. The almost supernaturally optimistic Alex Young is determined to make the most out of a truly terrible situation in the new game, The Tartarus Key. A survival adventure that has you trying to keep everybody alive, all while trying to find a way out. With throwback 32-bit graphics and a creepy story that's straight out of the Saw franchise, this is a game that delivers where it counts. It's too bad that there's no voice acting and that some of the puzzles veer into trial and error territory, because this is a strong adventure with a compelling story, a cool style, and a cast of characters you won't soon forget. If you like puzzles and mysteries, then it's worth unlocking the secrets of the Tartarus Key. Hey, thanks for watching our review. If you liked what you saw here, then you should know that we post new reviews and features almost every day. Now, here's the question I have for you. What is your favorite type of horror game? Do you like the survival type, the torture, action, maybe something completely different? Let me see your picks in the comments below. In other news, we're going to be back later this week with more reviews. If that sounds good to you, then I strongly recommend you click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then.